Welcome to our weekly FireStride Chat, where you will get the latest updates and news from the Stride team and a chance to chit chat with us and ask any questions that you might have to the team themselves. We're joined today by Riley, one of our core founders. And yeah, we've got some cool stuff on the agenda for today. We just released our 7th edition of the Stride briefing, which has a lot of the topics that we're going to just kind of talk through and open up as discussions today contained in there. So make sure you, if you haven't read that already, bookmark it so you can go check it out after this call. But yeah, Riley's going to talk us through some more technical dev related updates and some milestones that are taking place at the project level. And then I will talk a little bit at the end about our new ambassador program that just launched, talk a little bit more about kind of just the details of that program in case anybody is curious, because we have had a good amount of people start taking up the steps to be a part of the program. So on that note, I'm going to give the microphone over to Riley.
Yeah, not a ton of updates today. I'll run through them and then let's do questions and just hang out. So most of these topics are from the briefing. To kick it off, I think we're about halfway through the 60-day liquidity incentive program. Sets the daily incentive rate to something like 7,000 Stride, which is split between Stride and other tokens. I think a large part of it is in ST tokens. So the idea is that ST Atom will incentivize Atom, and ST Osmo incentivizes Osmo, and so forth. So you kind of get more of a reliable rate. So that's just an update on incentives. Big update is the Cosmos Hub Governance Forum approved Stride to join the Atom Economic Zone. The vote was overwhelmingly positive. I think it was something like 96% of folks voted yes. I haven't seen a proposal with so much positive turnout yes. So it seems like there's demand from the Cosmos Hub community, and likewise the vote on the Stride Governance Forum passed with overwhelming support. So it seems like a good vote of confidence for this transition, and that's going to be happening over the next month or so. Now that Neutron is live, the informal and interchain teams and the Haifa team who help with these test nets and with the rehearsals and all the technical stuff that goes on behind the scenes, they can transition over and start working with Stride on the replicated security launch. I'll pause there on the Atom economic stuff, but if anyone has questions, we can discuss it more in the Q&A. Next update, Evmos governance passed the Inferno incentive program for the Forge DEX. This is pretty exciting. Forge is basically a UDV3 fork on Evmos, and they have their community has shown a lot of support towards ST tokens and towards Stride. So this incentive program is an 84-day incentive program divided into 4 periods of 21 days each. And the incentives are pretty large and mostly allocated towards ST token pairs. So ST Evmos, ST Atom pairs, ST Evmos, Evmos pairs, ST Atom, Atom, and so forth. They're doing a lot to incentivize the usage of LSTs as base pairs on the DEX. It's pretty exciting to see new DEXs buying into this paradigm shift of being a liquid staking DEX first and then a native token DEX second. And it's a much more efficient way of allocating capital in a DEX. And I think they're requesting about 3 million Evmos overall to fund this campaign.
Riley, why is it more efficient to fund the DEX like with ST token backings rather than like standard token backing? Like what is actually more beneficial about that? I'm curious.
Yeah, so it's not the incentives that are ST tokens. That doesn't matter so much. The difference is that the pools on the DEX are ST token pools, which means that if you're providing liquidity in those pools, you earn staking rewards by default, and then anything on top is icing on the cake. Whereas if you were providing liquidity on a normal pool, you'd be sacrificing all your staking rewards. So the DEX's incentive program needs to compensate you for those lost staking rewards. So in order to even attract any liquidity providers, they need to offer something like 20% in incentives. If you default to liquid stake token pairs, you don't have to offer anything to be competitive. So it's just more efficient in that way.
Nice.
Some updates from the Osmosis side. For first DeFi on top of Osmosis, Mars is increasing some caps. Whoop whoop. On Mars itself, a proposal just went on chain to increase the cap from 90,000 ST atom to 200,000. So that should be a big jump. We've seen these get filled immediately in the past, so see what happens when that passes. I'll be watching closely. We also saw a proposal that just went live or just passed and was executed on Apollo on top of Mars. I think the cap was increased from 500 to 1,500. So 500,000 to 1,500,000 USDC. I think it was already full, so maybe we need another cap raise there. Another osmosis update. There's a proposal up on Commonwealth to create an incentive category for Atom LSTs. There's a lot of active conversation happening there, and I think the proposal potentially be modified going forward to include more than just Atom LSTs. We'll see where it goes, but the idea is the following: the current osmosis incentive program is basically just based on fees, but osmosis cares about a lot more than just fees. And with liquid staking tokens, the fees generated on DEX pools are very low. So you probably want a different incentive framework for them. Notably, you probably want to incentivize LSTs that bring use cases for deploying collateral on osmosis. For example, ST Atom is a core part of the Mars roadmap and the Membrane roadmap and the Lavana roadmap and the IBCX roadmap. And the success of those protocols is pivotal to the success of osmosis. So in turn, osmosis should feel a need to incentivize tokens that make the success of those protocols viable. That's kind of how, and there's some good discussion up there about matching and about extending the proposal to include other LST categories. So I think we'll probably get together with some of the folks from Osmosis and talk it out and submit a proposal for consideration of the Osmosis governance and token holders that is a win-win for both communities.
Why would Osmosis not want this to pass? Like, is there any like what? Well, not necessarily Osmosis, but like what would the argument like against this passing be?
Yeah, it's a good question. Osmosis's incentive program has historically been based on volume and fees. So from a first order perspective, the fees generated by the ST Atom pool would not be enough to make up for the incentives that would be deployed in the pool. In other words, Osmosis would be paying more incentives to the pool than the fees they'd be recouping from it. So it's a net expense. But on a second order, the use cases and utility driven by that pool far outweigh the cost of the incentives. So a first order simple argument against it would be the expense versus revenue argument. I think there's also been some reshaping of the osmosis incentive framework and philosophy in recent months and over the last year towards being a little bit more conservative and prioritizing pairs that pool pairs that are paired with the Osmo token. There are a bunch of tokenomics related reasons for that. This proposal breaks that paradigm a bit, so that's another reason against it. In sum, I think the reasons against it are largely more about needing to modify the broader process in light of this new type of token and less about being opposed to the general idea of incentivizing LSTs on osmosis. So I think we'll arrive at a favorable win-win solution in the end.
Awesome. Thanks for kind of breaking that down a bit. Yeah, I didn't really understand the at first kind of like the sort of how like the current incentive program being based on fees differed from this, but that makes more sense now.
Yeah, LSTs have notably low fees on DEXs, but that's not the value they provide. Moving over to UMI, there's a prop up to increase the ST Osmo deposit cap. There's a lot of demand for ST Osmo on UMI, and go check that out and vote. I think that's it for the updates.
Quick recap for you guys. Yeah, we talked a bit about the 60-day liquidity incentives program and just kind of our halfway mark with that. We talked about Stride joining the Atom Economic Zone, just kind of what that means for us going forward. Talked a bit about the EVMOS Inferno incentive program. We talked a bit about ST Atom vault cap on Mars, the osmosis proposal, and the UMI proposal. I see a little hand up. We got SHA256 and inviting you to the stage.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Hey, first off, I want to say I've popped into a couple of the FireStride chats, and but this is the first time I'm speaking. I just want to major props to the whole Stride team. I think what you guys have built is a pretty amazing project. So congrats on the success so far and the continued momentum. I have a bunch of questions, but I'll start off with probably my most pressing because I don't want to take up the stage too long. I think probably my biggest question that I've been thinking about for the last few weeks is about Stride token liquidity. So I think with all the success that Stride's had, we've seen the price go up significantly in the last couple months, and as well the market cap. And I'm just curious if they thought much about perhaps incentivizing an increase in the liquidity of the Stride token pool, or if there's any information you can share potentially about exchange listings. It just feels like compared to similar projects, as far as like market cap goes, the liquidity seems to be lacking now. And I've felt for the last like month or so that it feels like, somewhat smaller token purchases have a huge effect or a large effect on the price compared to other projects. Like for example, Astroport has maybe 2 times the liquidity or a little bit more than 2 times the liquidity of Stride token, and Mars has like, I don't know, I think like, 3 times the liquidity. I was just curious if there's any information you could share about that.
Yeah, good question. I think it's being thought of and addressed, and I know there's always some hurdles to listing on exchanges, such as the cost of doing that and the process behind it. So I can pass along your concerns.
Fair enough. Totally understandable.
Yeah, totally. It's a good question.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm gonna bring AXO7 up to the stage. So yeah, feel free to join and speak.
Hi guys. I just wanted to ask about DYDX and the liquid staking. DYDX is going to transition to Cosmos pretty soon, and I just wanted to know if you guys are in contact with them to do some sort of a liquid staking or what.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, we're in contact with them and a few of the other upcoming teams. Talked with of the like further out kind of bigger projects. We're in contact with DYDX, Celestia. There are a few others I'm not sure if they've been announced yet.
Yeah, perfect. So I just wanted to ask about the liquid staking when like a user has DYDX tokens and they want to stake it, and this liquid staking, would there be a way to like delegate those tokens to or is it more like we're delegating the DYDX token that's being staked is being delegated to the Stride validator, or how would that work?
Yeah, good question. So anytime you liquid stake a token, it gets delegated across validators on the chain for that particular token. So if you liquid stake DYDX, you would receive ST-DYDX, and your underlying DYDX would be delegated across the DYDX validators. And those validators are chosen using the Stride Validator Selection Council program. So short story, it would be delegated to the DYDX validators, yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. And also, would there be a way for delegates to also create a validator without having tokens, or maybe having a minimum of DYDX tokens to also have those the tokens that are being staked by other users to be delegated to only them? Or is it going to be like what you said, it's going to be across all of the DYDX validators?
It's across most of them, and the set depends on who applies for the program and whether they meet safety standards and contribution standards to the ecosystem. So that's how the set is chosen on the Stride side. But for the DYDX network itself, I imagine it will probably be permissionless like most Cosmos networks, though they're doing some custom things with the validator client. So it might make sense to jump into their Discord and ask them what their plans are.
Cheers, thanks for that.
I've got another question. I'd love to get a little bit more clarity about what happens to the Stride validators once we move to ICS, I guess I understand that they become governors but I guess could you kind of just explain that a little bit more? Maybe you've explained this already before, but just so I make sure that I understand how that transition works with regards to the current Stride validators and their role.
Totally. Yeah. So the current Stride validator set stays on, but they no longer have to run any hardware. They don't have to validate blocks or propose blocks or check the transactions that go inside the blocks. All the standard things that validators do on the mechanical infrastructure side. Instead of doing those jobs, they will continue to perform the other duties that they actively perform, like running relayers, contributing to the community, contributing to governance, furthering the adoption of the protocol at large, checking software upgrades for effective code, all that good stuff. And in exchange for continuing to perform those services, users will continue to delegate to those previously validators, now governators, and those governators will receive commission, the staking rewards earned on the delegations. But they'll share 15% of what they were previously earning with the Cosmos Hub. So instead of earning 100% of the commission, they'll earn 85%. But in exchange for giving some of that up, they no longer have to run the hardware, and they get the network gets the security of the Cosmos Hub. We did some calculations, and on net, for almost every validator, the reduction in expenses associated with not having to run the validator node far outweighs the reduction in revenue from the 15% that goes to the hub.
That's good. Great to know. My follow-up question has to do with maybe more my lack of understanding of the details of ICS. But let's say you are a new Stride token holder coming into the ecosystem after we move over to ICS, and you take your Stride and you stake it. I'm assuming that you are going to have to choose between the governors as who you're going to be staking with, and not the Cosmos chain validators, or how? I guess that's what I'm trying to understand, if that makes any sense.
From a staker's perspective, the transition to ICS doesn't change anything. You'll still just go to Kepler dashboard and choose a validator and stake, and then
okay, like those validators are going to be the governors, like the previous validators, not the Cosmos chain validators that you have to choose from. Correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thanks. That helps.
Yeah, it's pretty. The ICS stuff is a bit confusing, and we're gonna try to make a stronger effort to explain it. Particularly given we're doing a transition from a live chain. If you start from a new chain like Neutron did, it's the process a bit simpler, and the messaging is also maybe more clear. But given we already have validators and then we're switching them to governators, there's just a lot going on. So these are good questions.
I think that was helpful.
Awesome. All right, you guys, this has been a really awesome call. So I'm going to wrap things up. If you have any questions, please ask now or ask later in the general chat. But we'll probably close this call up in just a moment. So thank you guys so much. You can stay on if you've got anything left on your mind, but otherwise, have a great day, and we'll see you next week. Bye, guys. Ciao.
Thanks for joining.
All right. Closing the stage. Bye.